Hey folks, Javier Lopez here. Thanks for tuning in. So tonight's episode, I just wanted to make an update tonight on the episode of Hey Arnold that I just saw tonight. By the way, great show, great kids show. It lasted from 1998 to about 2004. In my opinion, it was my favorite one out of all of them. Out of like, it's not really a cartoon or an animated show, about a boy growing up in like an urban area, I think in grade school still, but kind of shows the life and that it really posts an accurate depiction of what it's like to, grow up in that time. Very interesting and creative characters. He has a lot of life lessons in it, and it's a great show. So again, the show is called Hey Arnold. Tonight's episode, and then I just wanted to talk about this because this one really struck me honestly. Um, it was, it kind of showed a reflection on childhood bullying, and as one who went through that, it really exposed and painted a very accurate depiction on what it was like, to be bullied as a child or to deal with bullying, growing up. And so this new girl, apparently in this episode, her name was Lila. She was a new student who came to class. First, a lot of people really liked her, but then, the way that, cliques are, like Helga and Rhonda and Phoebe and some of the other girls, they're all in a big clique. So, or however you pronounce it. And first of all, they try to say that, you're not going to make any friends around here, and if you want to make friends, you're going to have to really learn from us and try to fit in with us. And but no, she just wants to be herself, and they ended up hating that. So because they ended up hating that, they ended up starting to do everything they could to try to tear her down. So first of all, her locker got moved. They tried to, pour slime on her locker and try to dirty her dress, and they really took tactic after tactic after tactic to try to bully her. And then there was another one in the lunchroom where they, threw food, they spilled food all over her thing and intentionally humiliated her, and she started to cry and cry and cry, and then all the kids were laughing at her. And then she just ran out of the lunchroom in grief, and it's something as, these horrible girls, Helga, led by Helga, by the way, Helga, Rhonda, Phoebe, and I think a few others. You have to know the characters to know what I'm talking about. These girls were vicious bullies, and so they humiliated her in front of all the kids. They spilled food all over her dress, and then she slipped and fell because of another prank they pulled, and all the kids in the lunchroom started to laugh at her, and no one was showing any mercy or sympathy. So she broke down and started crying and ran out of the lunchroom. And it was just really, really sad. Considering that I personally went through something similar, almost exactly similar, at a camp when I was growing up, when I think it was our 8th grade retreat or something like that, and I was being bullied a lot there, a lot. I remember it. I'm never gonna forget it. I'm never gonna forget it. And one night it got so bad, I ended up running out of the cavern, just breaking down. And then next thing I know, I got in big trouble for that. And I'll never forget that. It was just a horrible experience. I remember that was April of 2010. But anyway, so she broke down because these kids were viciously bullying her and then laughing at her. And no one showed any mercy or sympathy. So she broke down and ran out of the lunchroom. And then this clique of bully girls Helga, Rhonda, and Phoebe, and a few others, they were celebrating about finally, taking her down. Meanwhile, Lila wasn't going to come to school the next day because she didn't want to come. So they gave a note from the father saying that she's not going to come to school. And then Helga and some of the others started to laugh at it. They're like, "Oh, she's trying to get all that smug off her shirt still." So it was sickening to watch that. And then the teacher, the fourth grade teacher, she tried to get Mr. Simmons was the fourth grade teacher. He tried to get, a volunteer to deliver Lila's homework to her house. And Helga was like, I'll do it. And so it was. She did it. And then when she went, she brought her little clique with her again. And so she brought Rhonda and Phoebe and the other girls with her, the vicious, mean girls. And then, so she knocked on the door. Her dad answered the door. And she was like, I'm just going to deliver the homework. And then the dad offered, you can come in. Oh, Lila, someone's here to see you. So Lila comes down. It was obvious she was sad and crying. And then Helga, gave the homework and all that. And then something happened in the house. That scene wasn't shown. But she went out of the house. And then went back to her clique of girls. And then she was like, oh, she's still crying and she's in tears, and all these girls were laughing at her. And then they heard her crying from her window. So, and then these girls ended up spying on her. And that, for a clique of bully girls, a clique of girls who were all vicious bullies, they were spying on her. I relate to that, by the way. When I was growing up, I had to deal with that too. They were spying on her through the window. And then they were all just with their smirks on their faces, all laughing and quietly laughing. And then after like a minute of spying, and then you're just laughing at her, and then she didn't realize she was being watched in her own house, by the way. So they were stalking her in her own house. And she didn't realize she was being watched, but she was just in bed crying and in tears, saying, telling her dad, I don't want to go back to that school ever. I don't want to go back to that school ever. That's how I felt during the 8th grade. But anyway, eventually she said something that ended making Helga and these other girls, started to feel bad. I forgot what it was that she said, but they finally started to feel sympathetic and started to feel bad about what they did. So anyway, they all ended up knocking on the door. So it was Helga, Rhonda, and Phoebe and the other girls. And they apologized to Lila for how they've been bullying her. And then they ended up confessing to her that a lot of it was to cover up their own insecurities. So this episode taught a life lesson about, the real life lesson about childhood bullying that many of us have gone through. And then these girls were like, oh, we didn't mean to hurt you. And then the other one was like, no, yes, we did. But it was to cover up our own insecurities. So you have to question whether this apology was sincere or not. So just to rephrase, I'm talking about an animated, show that was from the 90s to 2004 called Hey Arnold. And this was just the one episode of Hey Arnold. But it really showed a life lesson about bullying and how vicious and cruel bullying can be. So I was really touched by watching that episode personally. And it reflected, what some of what I've been through growing up in those times, and some of what other people have been through growing up in those times. So it was just interesting. So they apologized, and then she said, "I just wanted to be friends, and I just wanted to fit in," and so they pretended to feel bad, and then but you can tell that they still at the end of the episode they didn't like her anyway. So you just questioned their apology was really sincere. But it was as episodes progress, they get used to her, but it just really goes to show a lesson that can be taught from a lot of episodes in the show, adult like lessons that people can learn from this show. And I mean, like, many other kids shows don't do this. SpongeBob doesn't do it, Fairly Odd Parents doesn't do it. This one does. This was a kids show that had a lot of serious lessons about life. And it's touching. And life growing up, going to school, dealing with other people, growing up in a neighborhood, seeing the same people every day. Compassion, a lot of what Arnold does, he goes out of his way to help people, to show people he cares about them. It goes into deep things, prayer too, and just it was very. I'm very very impressed with the show, and I was particularly impressed with that episode. Anyway, that's all for now. Let me know your thoughts. Javier Blog 208 tuning out.